breast implants don't last forever. And that's like a key thing that I believe that is hidden from us. I was just going through my own healing process of just, again, it's like being so frustrated that this is so normalized that it is literally causing women so much pain, cancer. There have been women who have died, and then just like still this veil of like people not wanting to believe it's real. There were a lot of tears. There were a lot of crying. There was a lot of sitting in front of the mirror and just telling myself, you're not your body, you're beautiful, and giving that part of me the love that it truly needed. I know that this is part of my journey, is sharing my story. So it was all for this bigger reason. But, you know, it was a lot.
We'll make it out and fall in love tonight.
Thank you for joining us. Today we are here with Valerie Vazquez, and we actually had the pleasure of meeting her about a year and a half ago,
like 2 years.
about 2 years ago. And we were in a transformational training together where we got to know her and her wonderful partner, and just was able to form this really unique bond. The person that you're going to see here today, the heart that's coming out, is who she is. You are going to really just have the opportunity to fall in love with her as we have and hear all about her journey. So a little bit about Valerie. Valerie is a dedicated, ordained energy healer, minister, and earth steward residing on a serene 10-acre farm in beautiful Hawaii with her husband, soon to be adult children, and many animals and birds. As a loving wife and nurturing mother, she embodies compassion and strength in all aspects of her life. Having triumphed over her own struggles with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, and breast implant illness, Valerie brings a profound depth of understanding and empathy to her healing practice. Through her work, she embodies the essence of love, resilience, and transformation, inspiring all those who are fortunate enough to cross her path. Yes, yes. Thank you. Welcome, Valerie. Welcome. We are so happy you are here.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really, really appreciate this time, and I love you both. And yeah, it's going to be fun today.
Right? It's going to be
Chatting.
so much fun.
It's going to be fun to chat and be real.
Everybody loves talking about trauma.
Yeah, it's like the best thing to talk about. Yeah. I mean,
I think
really.
this is going to be a really important episode, I think. And I know that we chatted earlier in the week to kind of touch base on everything, but why don't you just start off wherever you feel comfortable starting off with, Val? And we'll kind of let you, because it's a personal story. It's a personal experience that you're going to be sharing and kind of diving into. And so I think it's probably best if we just kind of let you start at the beginning wherever you feel comfortable.
Okay. From what I understand, we're really wanting to talk about my journey with breast implant illness. Is that
Yes.
kind of what? Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure, because, everyone's journey has so many different facets. So for me, it was a few years ago. I had no idea that my breast implants were having such a huge impact on my health. I had been struggling with so many different symptoms and autoimmune issues and extreme pain for so long, because I had gotten breast implants like in 2003. So this was right after I had children. I was super young, in my 20s, and my body just changed so much, just like having these two children, and everyone around me was getting breast implants, and it was just such a normal thing, and I really couldn't live with the way my body looked. Like I could not accept that I had, everything changed. And so I just trusted. I went in, I had surgery. I didn't even think about asking any other questions. I just went in, had the surgery. And when I think back, I really started developing symptoms probably within the first few years. I started just feeling very fatigued. I started developing a lot of like adversities to different foods I was eating. I really just did not feel well, and started collecting a lot of pain in my body. But I just, I never thought it could be anything more. Fast forward to 2018, breast implants don't last forever. And that's like a key thing that I believe that is hidden from us. Breast implants really only have a shelf life of like 10 to 15 years. So thankfully around year 15, I was like, oh, I'm going to, change these out and get new ones. And at that time, when I changed them out, I had saline before, and then I went to silicone. And I remember asking the doctor, I was like, I've always heard that silicone implants are not good. And he was like, oh, no, everything's fine. Like they've come up with these gummy implants, and they're totally going to be fine. All of those studies just really are not, those were for an old type. These are new technology. You're going to be great. It's going to be better. They're going to be better feeling, blah, blah, blah. And so I really trusted him, and I was like, okay. So that was 2018. I had the silicone, and wow, did that like really progress my symptoms even more? Like my life changed dramatically. I was at that point in such extreme pain that there was nothing I could do to get out of pain, like pain pills, getting injections into my body, losing feeling down my arm. I almost lost, like, in one of my arms, I was almost not even able to use my arm anymore because it got so numb. And anyway, there was just all of these things happening. And thankfully I met somebody who was a friend of mine, and she was like, I also have breast implants and I'm going to get mine taken out. And I was like, wait, what? You're going to take them out? And she said, yeah, and we found out that we got the same exact allergen, gummy texture. They weren't textured, thankfully, because the textured ones actually have been causing cancer in women. So I didn't have those, but she was like, we really need to get these taken out. And at the time I had been going through a healing journey. Like, when we had met, we were all like really going through this healing journey. And I was really starting to accept that I'm not just my body, and these implants are affecting my quality of life. I mean, I have been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome and diagnosed with fibromyalgia finally, because no one could ever like say what is wrong with me. I missed out on so much of my life because I just couldn't function. And I at one point was addicted to painkillers because it was the only thing that would kind of take the edge off of it. There was just a lot. And so when I finally like went through that healing journey, and I really realized that I'm not my body, and the other thing, just knowing that, like the grief of feeling like you've been lied to, you've been just kind of used for the benefit of everyone else making money. And I had to go through all of that grief. But I just remember sitting down, and I finally called a doctor, a plastic surgeon who was an explant specialist, and the time he spent over the phone to talk to me and tell me and compassionately that he believed me, and that he was like, you have breast implant illness. Like there's no other way. I mean, to everything that you've described and everything you've gone through in the almost 19 years of having breast implants, and just to have someone like reaffirm that I wasn't crazy, that, this wasn't my hormones, or this wasn't something else. This was actually these implants. I just remember just crying and telling my husband, I was like, I have to take these out. Like, I don't care like what I look like anymore. I need to be able to put my hand over my heart and feel my heart and know that like I can walk around the world and not be in this pain. So that was kind of a quick journey. It's a lot deeper, but I did go ahead and schedule my surgery. It took a while to get in because there are not many explant specialists available. Like, there's over 7,000 plastic surgeons in the United States, something like that. And there's like, not everyone can do an explant, but not everyone does it properly. And so I had over a year to wait to get the explant, but I was so desperate because I was in so much pain and losing feeling in my arm that I was able to find another surgeon who was a specialist, and I was able to thankfully get in within 2 months and have the surgery.
That's so much, Val. And
Yeah.
I want to hit upon a couple of different things. First and foremost, like, we really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. I think it is something that a lot of people are going to benefit from hearing, right? A lot of women who have implants or are thinking about it, or even just the awareness that that things can happen, right? It's not portrayed, or I guess it's not portrayed. It's not as clear cut as we would think it is, right?
Right.
And it's definitely, like you said, there's things that were kept from you and things that you weren't necessarily shared or told, or however, right? I mean, back in the early 2000s, it was a huge normal thing, I think. And in all likelihood, it probably is still a real normal thing for a lot of women, I think. But I'm really curious about, like, this is a hard, I almost feel like I shouldn't be talking because this has so much to do with like the feminine aspect of being a woman and everything like that. But I mean, like, for example, I had a vasectomy, and when I was 30 years old, very, very different, right? I'm not comparing stories or anything like that, but that was something that was connected to me as a man, was connected to masculinity, was connected to my story about being a man, right? And so I'm very curious about what the journey was like for you, as far as like, because that is such a part of being a woman for so many different reasons on so many different levels, right? It's a part of your body that is directly connected to being a woman for obvious reasons. And what is that like over the course of the journey of having the implants, as well as, finally deciding that these things are making me sick, I need to get them out of my body, that whole process? What is that doing internally, and kind of the work of going through, what does it mean to be a woman? How is this affecting me? And maybe it wasn't, right? Maybe you didn't really struggle with that. And so I'm curious.
So definitely, I feel that our society has definitely placed this idea of what a woman should look like, and it has gotten extremely far from like what a woman should look like. I mean, right now, if you go out, the majority of women, they're believing in a false narrative of how they should look, right? Like, because we are a lot of times looking at celebrities, or we're looking at all of these things that make us think that we're a woman. And the truth is that women are all different shapes and sizes, and breasts are there honestly to feed their children. That's what breasts are for. They're not meant to be all perky and big and whatever, so that we can look a certain way. And I think that is yeah, we have been taught that we are supposed to look a different way than we are. And I definitely, like, I see it like that. That's just the norm. It's just the norm. But like I said, it took a lot during my healing journey to really understand. And I tell this to every woman that I ever work with. I tell this to my daughter all the time. We are not our bodies, and we're all made so differently and so beautifully. For us all to think that we have to cut ourselves open to try to look a certain way is just taking us further from the truth of who we are. And we're just so much more powerful as women when we can be true to who we are and not think that we have to subject ourselves to so much pain. I mean, these surgeries, they have to cut you open. You have to go under anesthesia and be cut open and put a foreign object into your body. I mean, that separates you from who you are. Like, the, as you know, and you could tell this is a really hard subject because just because it's an elective surgery, it's really hard, cutting into the muscles and changing the way our bodies function because we're cutting ourselves open and then putting an object in our body that our body doesn't accept. And so many women have so many problems, just with the implants going in alone. So women, we don't have to subject ourselves to this type of pain and suffering within our bodies and financially as well.
You are sharing so beautifully, and I am so, so grateful for that. There, like my journey is I didn't get implants, and it wasn't because I didn't want them. It's that I didn't have the opportunity. I wanted them so bad because I felt like I was no longer acceptable. I was no longer worthy. I was no longer valuable. After having a couple of kids myself and breastfeeding, which I'm so grateful that I was able to, you're like you said, your body changes. It changed mine. It changed so hard. And I had so much wrapped up into the way that I thought I was supposed to look that it didn't even occur to me that I was wrong. It didn't even occur to me. It was like, of course I'm supposed to fix this. Yes, you're supposed to love yourself. But it was very much that mentality of I need to fix this so I am presentable and I have value and I have worth and I'm worthy of love, because it equaled being worthy of love. And other than that, I was being tolerated at best. And I remember, like, I used to talk to Craig about it a lot and how bad I wanted them. And at one point I said, I really need to get them before I'm old enough, or that, how did I say it? I think it was before I'm too old to care anymore. And at that time that was worth, I'm like, I'm going to get to a point where I'm not going to care to get them. And so I need to get them now so I can secure my worth, my value in the future. And that's just, it blows my mind that that's the programming that we had. And I remember hearing all of these things and doing research. And at first, silicone, they came out and they said silicone was bad. But saline, your body naturally makes saline, is how they said it. Like, this is healthy. If it leaks, it's okay. Your body will just absorb it like saline. It's natural. They use that to flush IVs. Everything's fine with saline. And then I remember I was going to get the gummy bear because that was the healthy version. It was less invasive. It was safer than the saline. It felt more natural. All of those things that you said that had gotten spun to you, they were just, I remember seeing ads for those, and your recovery time is supposed to be faster. All the ways that they made this look like this magic solution where you could finally be you. And I was so sad that I didn't get that for myself. And it started to shift where I've never been grateful, honestly, until hearing your story. I always felt like, well, it's okay that I've let that pass. I'm just going to have to be okay with it, because you've heard of some people getting it, but they don't really put that in the media. So it's these rare extreme cases that are really unlikely to happen to you, is how it looks. And then I meet you, and you're right here, and you're amazing, and you start talking about all of these things and all of these symptoms. And it's the first time I'm 44, and it's the first time that I was like, oh, I know why I never had that opportunity. I see why that happened. It's the first time that I was so, so grateful that I didn't put myself through that I didn't put myself through the incredible invasiveness, the cutting open, the putting something in your body that doesn't go there, because all of it, it felt like, how dare I not do this? How dare I not even just a confidence. How dare I not do this so I can be the most presentable me?
Thank you for sharing that. And so many of us have felt that way too, Steph, of not feeling like we are worthy of love based on our appearance. And it's put so heavily on women. It feels like it's more normal now to see women that have had plastic surgery and they've gone through these same things, it's just, I mean, I remember I could not accept myself. I just couldn't. But I also at the time was married to someone that, you know, it just, it was no longer, no longer the body that was once appealing, and we are objectified a lot, and that has been programmed in us so much. And so it's about really learning how to see that programming for what it is. It's false. And really starting to have radical self-acceptance, which that is hard. It's so hard. I mean, I don't care how much work you do on yourself. When you go by the mirror and you look at it, you're hearing the voices of those that have said you're not enough, or you should look like this, or, I mean, and thankfully you have a partner that accepts and loves you, loves your body for, who you are, what you are. And thankfully I have a partner now too, that all that he wants is for me to feel my best. And he's a boob guy. He's an absolute boob guy. But he was like, he's like, I love you more now. I mean, because you were being so true to yourself. And let's just talk about how those things feel. When you have an implant in your body, I'm sorry, but when I had the silicone implants, I could feel the actual valve in my body. Okay, that doesn't feel real sexy. It doesn't feel really good. And then they're cold. When you have an implant in your body, your breasts are cold. They don't feel warm, and they don't feel, just like, they don't feel good. They just don't. Yeah. So thank you for sharing again, Steph. And I'm glad that you didn't go forward, that the opportunity didn't come up for you to be able to subject yourself to the pain that it really is. Yeah.
Val, take us to the point where you have the surgery, and then obviously you have to heal from that process physically. But is that a catalyst in your life at that point? Is that like a real big shift because I'm assuming, and I apologize for assuming, right? But I'm assuming it's a really big shift for the healing journey of Val, right? It's the opportunity to like finally get these out of your body. What does that process look like? What does the healing look like? Take us there.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for spending your time with us, listening to the podcast. We know there's a lot of options out there, and you're choosing your time with us, and we're so grateful that you are. Would you do us a favor? Would you subscribe to this podcast, share it, and write us a review? This helps us build the podcast. This helps us reach more and more people, and we have a goal of reaching over 1 million people. So any amount of engagement that you do really helps us achieve that. Thank you for being here. We're so grateful to you. We're so excited that you're choosing to share your journey with us and listen to a part of ours. Let's get back to the show.
there was a lot of obvious physical healing that had to happen, right? So I'm going to
Yeah, what
kind of
was the
walk.
recovery time like?
So I'm going to walk you through that a little. So the surgery I had and the surgery that I recommend every woman have when they take their implants out is the in block total capsulectomy, where the surgeon goes in and removes the capsule that's around the implant fully intact. And then on top of that, they stitch back the pectoral muscles, because a lot of women don't understand that when the breast implant, if they have an under the muscle, the pectoral muscle is cut open, it's never sewed back. So what I had was the in block, the total capsulectomy, and also a muscle repair. So my muscles were reattached. So there's that, thinking about that now my muscles are being reattached. How is that going to affect my shoulder, my neck, and my back? And then also I did, because my implants were large and I had a lot of extra skin, I had a lift done as well, just so that when the implants weren't out, that was my choice. Not everyone chooses to do that. But because of that, physically, my doctor told me that it would be a year long process from healing from this surgery.
Wow.
A year. It's not just, oh, let's just take these implants out and you're done. It's a year of my body, and my breast literally changed over that entire year, and even up to, it's been a year and a half now, the way that they've been changing. So it's not quick. It's not a race, it's a marathon. And so that's the physical part. I really had to be very careful. I live on a farm, so it took a long time for me to be able to even, carry buckets of feed or do anything like that. I had to do a lot of gentle stretching. And it's like, another thing that people don't think about is a lot of times when we go in to have surgeries, we have physical therapy. But because this is a cosmetic surgery, a lot of times no one tells you to get physical therapy, or you're not going to get a prescription for physical therapy for like your insurance cover. So because I've done a lot, with the body, being a personal trainer in the past and studying a lot of yoga, I knew how to do stretches for myself and I knew how to take care of my body. And I went in and got massages, had healings. Okay. So that's just the physical part. It's a lot. And I'm still having to put castor oil, because if I do too much, then I'll have swelling. But as far as like the emotional process of it, it was a lot of tears, a lot of anger, like freaking rage, anger that, part was, even though I had complete and total compassion for myself, I had to go through being angry at myself that why did I subject myself to this, But then it was, well, this is the programming. This is what this is what has been normalized. And then it was, the grief that I had to go through of realizing that this industry values money over humanity, like it really does. Over $17 billion a year for plastic surgery. And most of those are breast related procedures. And so it was like, I was just going through my own healing process of just, again, it's like being so frustrated that this is so normalized that it is literally causing women so much pain, cancer. There have been women who have died. And then just like still this veil of like people not wanting to believe it's real. Like, I don't want to believe that that's real. That's not possible. I was one of those people too. So there were a lot of tears. There were a lot of crying. There was a lot of sitting in front of the mirror and just telling myself, you're not your body. You're beautiful. It's okay. Like it's almost like, when we talk about reparenting our inner child, it was like parenting that part of me and giving that part of me the love that it truly needed to understand that, well, I know that this is part of my journey, is sharing my story. So it was all for this bigger reason, but it was a lot. And
It's a lot.
yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
The part where you were just talking about a lot of sitting with yourself in front of the mirror and like telling yourself, being very compassionate and loving, you're not your body, and that
Yeah.
reparenting. Have you either, like, do you remember the moment, or have you had the moment yet of where you felt like when their breath came in your body and you started to connect to that and believe that and starting to feel some of that love and that peace and that acceptance in yourself?
Yeah. So I remember very specifically, I was over, I have a little, I call it my temple. And it's where I do healings on people, energy healing. And I laid down on my table. I think this was like maybe 2 months after the surgery. And I was just laying there, and I put my hand on my chest, and I just felt this love come through that was so like extreme. And it was like, I can feel my heart. There's nothing blocking me from feeling my heart right now. And it was just like, I just cried, and it was just like this loving presence that came to me. Yeah, it was so intense. Like, I'm starting to feel it right now. Just like, wow, you're love. You are love, and you did the right thing, and you are still beautiful, and nothing that you ever put inside of you made you any better or more lovable. And just, yeah. So that was that time for me.
Thank you for sharing that. So glad that you felt that.
Yeah, this is it's a really deep, deep journey of just realizing how separated you can become when you believe that you have to subject yourself to something as horrendous as being cut open, and modifying who you are, modifying your body so that society can accept you. It is, I've been through a lot of things in my life. But this journey has probably like been one of the toughest things to go full circle and really see how it began and all of the things that I had to go through to get to this point of radical acceptance that I'm no longer angry at myself. I'm no longer angry at well, I'm not going to say that I'm not angry at this continued, the continued lies that continue to happen, because I am angry about that. I'm angry for women, and but yeah, it's been quite a journey to just go full circle. And now I realize every single time that I share my story, a lot of women will DM me and just thank me. I've had so many friends that have just been like, just like you, Steph, like this was something I wanted to do and I was gonna do, but because you're telling me your story, I'm now realizing, no way. No fucking way. I mean, just this year, the Aesthetic Plastic Journal released a study that within 15 years, 50% of everyone that has breast implants are going to have complications. And within 2 to 4 years, at least 10%. So this is huge.
Yeah.
It's so huge that women get the correct knowledge of just how toxic these implants are. They are toxic. They are made with heavy metals. They are made with toxins. They are made with things that do not belong in a body. And it's so weird to me that people that have, let's say, dental implants or knee implants or anything else, if they started having issues, that would immediately be addressed. But because this is the breast implants, because we expect women to look a certain way, because we just want to make so much money, it's pushed under the rug.
As are women's symptoms, as is women's pain. So all of the things that come up where they get dismissed, pushed aside, and ignored and explained to what they're actually feeling is this, not what they're saying they're feeling. And all of that just sums up to a whole, just a blind spot. This really not, I guess blind spot's too generous of a word because it's an intentional because of the misleading. It's an intentional as long as women or anybody that wants to feel like to bear breast, I guess, in that sense, anybody who wants that, as long as there's that drive, as long as there's that space, it's going to be capitalized on when it's more than just, like you said at the beginning, like the whole design is to feed, is to feed our babies, is to feed, is to nurture, is to bring that love and that space in. It's such a big deal. So with that, when you mentioned, if we can swing back just a little bit, that first conversation that you had with the doctor who listened to you, who actually heard your experience, who validated you finally, somebody that was willing to, like, you're not crazy. It's not all of these things. What is happening to you is real. What you've been saying is real. And now somebody is finally listening to you. You mentioned, like, can you speak to that a little bit, what that felt like in your body to actually be heard in that space and to have somebody speak to that?
Yeah, it was like, again, I cried because, and all I could say is thank you for listening to me. And not only did he listen to me, but he explained to me what was happening with the numbness in my arm and how the implant was pressing against the nerves of my brachial nerves. And he explained all of these things. And he validated me instead of being gaslit from other people, instead of, trying to blame it on everything else. Just having someone listen to me, it was just, it felt like, wow. Yeah, you're hearing me and you're not telling me I'm crazy, or that, you're hearing me. You're not defending. Yeah.
Val, where does this fit into your healing journey? Like, where is this along the lines of, because we know some of your story, and we're not going to get into like your entire past history of everything at all, but
Right.
how does this fit into, because we believe, I shouldn't say we, I think Stephanie does. I'm practicing one of the things that we're like super focused on, or at least I'm super focused on. See, I still just did it again there, is trying to speak for myself rather than speaking of us as a we. It's really difficult because obviously it's the Steph and Craig show and we have this podcast and everything like that. But truthfully, it comes from the place of like trying to heal codependency and recognizing that I'm an autonomous person separate from my partner. And so I'm constantly trying to like correct my speech. Anyways, now I've lost track of what I was going to say. I believe that if it's on our path, it's for our path. And so with that in mind, this experience of getting implants when you did right back in your 20s, navigating all of this, coming up to this point in your life, like it's always easier to reflect back and see, we turn around and we look how far we've come, to see how far we've come and see the lessons that we've learned and everything like that. And I'm sure you've picked up a lot of those things right now. And I'm sure, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there'll be even more things that you see from this experience. But how does it fit into your overall kind of journey at this point in your life? Do you feel like it's one of those things that, when I say you have to go through it, but do you know what I mean? Like that whole adage of if it's on your path, it's for your path. How does that fit?
Yeah, I know that it was part of the path, part of the journey that needed to happen. And I actually, like, during my like intense part of my healing journey, not that it ever like gets super easy, but I had actually done a Kundalini yoga practice. And during that practice, I really felt like it was just like this message was coming through, like, you just need to be you, like fully you, like without these implants, like you just need to be fully woman. And I was like, oh gosh, like, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if I mean, I get that I'm on this healing journey, like, and I get that like I am like supposed to be accepting myself, and I'm not supposed to place my worth on my looks, but fuck, like, that is all that we've been taught, is that our worth is based on our looks, you know? I mean, and so at that point I was like, oh gosh, this is part of it, and this is part of how I'm going to eventually like share my story. I didn't see it at that point like that it would become so much more to my friends and my family, and to now sharing it with even more. But yeah, it was part of the acceptance that it's okay to be fully me without this layer of I don't even know how to say it, just without that part of me that wasn't really part of me. And it's the
How do
same
you
thing
see
with,
yourself?
oh, go ahead.
What was that?
No, it's the same thing with me just like cutting my hair off. It was like more self-acceptance that I don't have to have this long blonde curly hair to like be me, you know?
Well, that's my curiosity, is it's like, how do you see yourself now? And how do you see, when I say, how do you see yourself as a woman, but like, how does that change, right? How would you define what that is to you now, is where you're at in life?
It's still a process I'm working on, okay?
Right.
Because the amount of everything that we have been have been told that we should be, or we should look like, or that's wrong with us if we don't, if we don't have our toenails done, if we don't have our legs shaved, if we don't have our bikini waxed, if we don't have the implants, if we don't have the Botox, if we don't have all of those things, like, we are not woman. But now I know I'm woman because when I go out on the land, and it's like I feel so connected and I feel so alive, and I'm no longer having to do all of these things to be loved and accepted. I am fully accepted. When I go out and I see my sheep and my chickens and all of the things that are here, we're just vibing out here, and we're like living, and all of those things don't matter. Like, when you go out, you just know that, like, you're connected in a way that you no longer have to like put on these masks to be accepted. And then once I could like really do that here, when I go to the store, when I actually leave the farm and I'm no longer in isolation anymore, I mean, I look around at women, and I'm not judging any women at all. When I see them, I'm always sending them love, but you can just see that it's hard. It's hard because you don't know how to go out and not put on all of these things, to be accepted. You know, you don't know that that's not something that you have to do until you can really sit with yourself and like sit with the truth of who you are. And like I said, I have, every time I go past the mirror, you know, I'm not just radically, I don't radically accept myself unless I keep it as a practice. I have to keep it as a practice. I have to say affirmations to myself still. I mean, this is so deep. It's just not just me, it's generations of women being expected to be a certain way. So like it's still a process for me. But I do know the truth when I can sit with myself and I can connect and I can ground and I can, you know, I can feel the love that is surrounding me. That's when I know I'm woman, when I'm kind of alone and just know that all of these things haven't been the truth. They haven't. It's one big lie.
I don't even know if, like, I'm going to speak from my perspective as best as I can without trying to wrap all men into the same perspective. But I don't even think, like, I know personally, I have a hard time understanding what, I mean, because I'm going to wrap Steph into this and I hope she's okay with it. I know she's okay with it. But it's like I go through this process of, I mean, like the story that we have, Val, the narrative that we have is it's like, you know, I have to wait for Steph to get ready to go do stuff, right? I have to wait for Steph to get ready to do hair, to do makeup and everything like that. And then I also hear her talking about how frustrating that is and all of those kind of different things. And I, I oversimplify it from the perspective of like, yeah, just don't do it, right? It's just don't do it. And I don't think I understand the complete totality. I know I don't understand the totality of what that weight really feels like. So I wonder if both of you could speak to it a little bit more. I mean, I'm sure that it's not hard for women to understand it because you guys carry that burden and that weight of it. But I mean, like, you don't even see it in pop culture and in society, right? I remember several years back where it was like Alicia Keys was getting a lot of notice because she stopped wearing makeup and going, you know, on the red carpet and different things like that. But even something like that gets viewed in so many different ways. And so the correlation connection between, I know that I have a question. I feel like this is a hard, I feel like I'm tiptoeing around things that are potential landmines because I don't want to speak about some of these things from this perspective because I'm a guy, I'm a man, right? It's like, truthfully, this problem is largely in part because of men. Even if we look at it just strictly from the breast implant perspective of it, right? Like, I don't think that was something that women came up with. I'm sure we could Google it, right?
No,
But
it absolutely wasn't. It was two male doctors that got together with Dow Corning and created the silicone breast implant in the 60s. So it
right?
was a men who created the breast implant.
Yeah, it's ridiculous to think. I mean, you know, looking at it now, obviously, with the lenses that I have now and the filters that I have now and the ability that I have now to see it, but largely, this is such a problem, and not just the breast implant issue, but the idea that women have to look a certain way is that, I mean, I'm going to just sit here and keep stuttering and muttering and tripping over my words, but I would like for speak more to what that actually feels like to carry the burden for 40 plus years of being so constricted about your looks and how you see yourself and trying to move through life. And I mean, it's so ingrained into the story of who we are as people. And I don't think men really understand that. Like, I have a component of it. I care about my looks. I can get into my head about it. I have a whole story of shame and everything like that about my body as well. But I don't think it's the same. I know it's not the same.
So for women, we have okay. So I know why you're tripping over your words, because you couldn't possibly understand as a man and that's okay. But women have literally been oppressed for thousands of years, okay, right? We've been controlled and we've been expected to play a certain role, and mostly that role has been to placate to men and to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way, so that we can get favor from men. And so this is it is developed over time into this more, the looks and the I guess, like when the capitalism like came in, and it's like, people buying this makeup, and it's the whole anti-aging thing. Like, we have made the young woman the center of attention because she is the most attractive, and we want to continue to stay looking like that. And we've really like made women who are going in, into their mature years is not as, they're not really valued anymore. And so it's really been more of like keeping this appearance so that we can be loved and valued and desired for and stayed sexy and all of these things. And I just want to tell this one story where, like, this is where it started for me. Of I was like in third grade on the bus, and in third grade, and I had like blonde hair on my legs. And these boys were like, "Oh my gosh, you have hairy legs." And I was just like, "Okay." And that, like, if you could remember those times where like your innocence was like pulled away from you, that was like the first moment. And I remember going home and like shaving my leg, like stealing one of my mom's razors and shaving my legs. And that is when the shame started. That is when, for me, it was like, oh my gosh, like these expectations put on women to have their legs shaved and to have all of these things. Like, how did this boy that was in the third grade learn this? Like, this has just been something that, yeah, we've just been shown that we're not going to be accepted if we don't look a certain way for men. And then it starts being sometimes a competition between women. And it's very painful, but it is largely what our society is about, is body image. And what we are forgetting is that, we are supposed to age. Aging is a gift. And if we don't, like what you said, Craig, you were like, well, Steph says I don't like getting ready and getting my hair and makeup, and why don't you just not? I'd like you to pay attention to the majority of women that when they go outside of their home, they do put makeup on. They do put their hair on and dress nicely because they feel that they're going to be judged if they're not, So this has been going on for a long time, that women have been expected to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way to be accepted.
Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the podcast. We really appreciate it. We set a goal for ourselves that we want to reach over 1 million people on YouTube. And truthfully, we're going to need your help to get there. So if you haven't yet, head over to YouTube and subscribe to the Steph and Craig Show. And be sure to click that notification button so that you get a little ding every time we release a new episode. We're really grateful that you chose to listen to our podcast, and we hope that you're enjoying this episode. Now let's get back to it.
Touch on a part that I don't think I had. Like, how you have awareness of things, and this has come up recently for us, of having awareness but not having center awareness. And you were talking about being in third grade and on the bus, and how the other little boys started talking about your leg hair, and how that affected you, and how did these little boys know that that was a thing? And there's another aspect that came for me. It's because you said you went home and shaved your legs. And that sparked my memory of when I started shaving my armpits, which was way before my legs. I was little. And I had an uncle point out my armpit hair and was like, those are so long, you could braid those, and just started making all these comments about my body. And like, the truth is that I started getting comments about my little girl body from grown men before I did kids in my age group. I had adult men commenting and objectifying my child body before other kids in my class. So I was learning from them what was acceptable and what wasn't. And then when it started to come from others, it was just validation, validation, validation is how it felt to me. And this is how I need to fix myself. This is how I should look. This is how I should be presenting my body for men. And it's quite, I don't think that's just a new layer. I've had awareness of that, obviously, but that's a new layer of awareness that I hadn't peeled back just yet. And so sitting with that's a new one. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel safe for so many ways. There's times that, you run out of the house and your hair's a mess and it's up, or you're disheveled, you've got same clothes that you've had on for 2 days because you haven't been able to do anything else. And it's just like, you have to like really put on all of this emotional armor to go out of the house natural. And sometimes you have to put on emotional armor to walk out of the room into a room where your partner is and look a mess. Like, you've never once told me, I don't like the way you look. You've never told me, why don't you do your hair? Why don't you get makeup on, change your clothes? You've never once given me an insult in the way that I look. And still, I have to mentally and emotionally armor up. And that's not your fault. That's not where I'm like, this is your doing. I'm like, I really want to clarify that. That is programming that runs so deep that I can't imagine that you would be thinking anything else. It's just so deep. It's so deep.
Yeah, I'm very thankful for my partner in that. He's never once said literally anything about my body. He's never gone, oh gosh, your hair is sticking straight up, or oh gosh, you look, he's never done that. And so he has helped a lot in the healing and accepting of myself. But growing up, my family was also very judgmental. And I remember I had really bad acne growing up. And I remember I'd walk out and, there would just be like these comments about it immediately, or these comments, and also comments about my body, about my ass or what, any of those things. And yeah, so it's just that this constant judgment about how you look. And so I'm very grateful to have a spouse that does not care what I like. He doesn't love me more if I have makeup on or if I don't, or if I dye my hair, if I don't, if I, being out here where I live has helped me immensely accept myself naturally. I rarely ever wear makeup, actually, and I do go into town without makeup now. I do believe where we live is also a big thing, because here on this island, it's very like lovey, free flowy, hippie, like you don't gotta wear makeup. And so for me, that's been very, very helpful. But I know that, like, just when I had my surgery done in California, in Newport Beach. And when I would go into the restaurants there, I was like, wow, I'm like the only one in here that, doesn't have makeup on. And I think if you were to live in a place and everyone else did things, you just really have to, I mean, it's that deeper layer of healing to just know that like you're not any better because you wear makeup or you don't, or you're not any more beautiful than you are without it. But it's just layers of like healing, and accepting yourself for who you are. But it can't just happen like that. It's a process, just like everything that we've done in our healing journey is a process. This being able to look at yourself in the mirror and just, I mean, I seriously say this to myself every day. You are not your body. You are housing your beautiful, beautiful soul. And honestly, if someone is judging you, fuck that. Like, let them judge you. Like, just let them judge you. It's okay, because we know that they're judging themselves too. So I'm going to send you love. I'm going to send you compassion. If you look at me funny, I'm going to think because you're just looking at my earrings or whatever I'm wearing. Like it's not because I'm not wearing makeup. Like, remember, we have those abilities when someone looks at us that we can portray what we want to portray.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when we look at ourselves in the mirror, we can just say, you're a beautiful soul. Mascara is not going to make you any better. I mean, it's fun, but it's not necessary.
You are
Val,
not your.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just repeating that. I love that. You are not your body. You are housing your beautiful, beautiful soul.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing to say to yourself. I want to like stick that in my brain. I love that. You are not your body. You are housing your beautiful, beautiful soul.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
So I mean, we settled. So there I go again saying I settled on the realization, unfortunately, a few years back that like, yeah, it's just this ongoing fucking journey of continual healing over and over and over and over again, right? It's just the practice of life. What's really big in your space right now? What are you actively kind of processing, working through? Because we go through these phases where it's like, oh, we think everything's great and then next thing you know, here comes the next wave of stuff that is boiled up to the surface now to be healed and looked at and felt and processed. So what's in your space right now that's really big that you're kind of navigating and working through?
A lot. um, but it is this collective women's awakening that's happening, of really like that anger that is coming up with all of these different laws that are changing. And my daughter and my son just moved to the farm with us, and I've been working a lot with my daughter on this, like using our voice, being able to really use our voice again and know that it's okay. And a lot of times that what's coming through isn't always just our own stuff. It's like generations of our own ancestors, and it's just the collective consciousness of women, like this rage that's coming up, and I'm feeling that. I'm working on that in my own way, but I'm also like I'm helping my daughter. So it's like navigating that. And then of course, my husband and we're always working on some things like codependency too. And I think it's so cool that you're sitting there saying like instead of saying the we, you're saying the I. Instead of being two halves, you're a whole. Like that's a constant thing, when you're in this relationship of both people doing the inner work and healing. So that's kind of always a thing. But it's more of really the deep wound of the feminine that's really real for me. Yeah.
Well, Val, thank you so much for today. Thank you so much for being willing to come on and share your story with everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Is there anything else that you'd like to share? Any last words or any advice or anything like that before we wrap up?
Well, I share this a lot whenever I talk on TikTok about breast implants. Just remember that there are no safe breast implants. It doesn't matter if they're saline or silicone, and just do your research because you are beautiful just the way you are.
Thank you so much. It's
You're
really,
welcome.
really beautiful. It's a wonderful conversation. We'll be sure to share all your stuff down in the show notes. And everybody go follow Val on TikTok. You've got a really good TikTok.
Yes, you
You get
do.
to check out the farm and everything. And you're talking about this kind of stuff all the time, which I think is really important and really beneficial for women to hear. It's beneficial for everybody to hear too, right? I think men need to be involved at least in the process of like listening to this conversation and hearing this conversation and recognizing the impact of what these breast implants actually are. Because it's not, it's not the thing that we were sold either. And I think that's a big thing for men to also understand as well.
Yes, I agree.
So
Yes.
thank you so much, Val. We end every episode. We'll let you do the tagline. It's expect the best, plan for the greatest.
Expect the best and plan for the greatest.
Yay.
Yay.
We'll see you
Thank
all
you,
on the
Val.
next episode.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay,
We
see you.
got a
Aloha.
wild ride. Wait and see, you and me. We were meant to be.
We want to make something perfectly clear. This podcast is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as a substitute for professional advice. We're sharing with you our own personal experiences and insights, things we have found to be helpful on our healing journey, but we are not licensed therapists. If you need help, it's important to seek out a qualified professional. Remember, we believe that we all do better when we heal together. See you soon.